Obscure storytelling. A description that most games have towards the way the story, world, and lore is developed throughout the timeline and playtime of the game. Many games have had this label applied to them, or if not, discovered to be. The easiest examples and topics that will be used for this video will be games made by From Software, like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Sekiro, Bloodborne, and for this video in particular, Armored Core 6, Souls-likes like Lies of P, and the most recent example to be stellarblade. All of these games are seen as having obscure or vague storytelling and therefore, to some people, bad. Main reason as to why I bring this up is for reviews, opinions, and general controversy surrounding the newest edition of the Souls-likes, stellarblade. Yes, Waifu Souls, Titty Blade, and any other meme name for this game has seen its fair share of criticism and drama. None of that I'll be talking about for this, more so the topic of certain reasons unexplored to unexplained or unreasonable parts of the world. Same thing with certain games like Armored Core. All these games share in common a similar theme that, at surface level, the story is hard to see, and fair point, the way that they tell their stories is very, very strange. Either in brief sketches, random dialogue in the middle of combat, world building by observing the world and what happened to certain locations, text boxes, item descriptions. There's no wonder why most people don't find these things to be particularly interesting or go out to even see where the story even begins. Story or lore, they kind of go hand in hand in a way. To preface this before we start, some parts may include spoilers, but I'll be giving disclaimers throughout the video anyways. Let's start with stellarblade, a game infamous for its overhated character design, incredulous drama, and criticized voice acting.
Halt, outsider.
You hear yourself? How can you be so entitled? Eve, there's a fusion drive at the back of the store.
Wait, you can't just...
Come on, let's find out what's really going on.
I'm Royal Guard Quiel. I'm under direct orders from Oracle to protect the ruins. Do you know this is a restricted area?
Nonetheless, Studio Shift Up has made a rather amazing game that breaks through the drama due to people who play games enjoyed a good game rather than worrying about body standards. Due to this intense, zoomed-in focus on the game, just because of the controversy behind it, reviews and general criticism have gone into its world building and potentially anything that could be blamed. One example being the game's character and world design. Looking rather generic in premise, realistically, any game that has semi-realistic to realistic or Unreal Engine art style can be considered generic to some. But this is a disingenuous comparison. As an aspiring artist like myself, calling an art style or world building as generic is rather rude and can be disingenuous to make a point. I might be saying that alone, so bear with me. When you look at a realistic art style, or rather the way the world looks within stellarblade, for this example, it has a semi-realistic, dilapidated look just because of the lore and consequences of the world. What games are similar to this? Well, the game it was inspired by, Nier Automata. Yes, the other game with an attractive female character, with a ruined city, and desert, and flooded city, theme park, alright yeah. It's definitely hugging Nier's coattails like a lost kid in a mall. This video in particular was sparked due to a review made by Sphere Hunter. I'm going to play the clip of a point that fits perfectly into this segment. Mind you, I want to preface this with the fact that the rest of her review is on the spot with fantastic points and criticism that I actually agree with. It's actually one of the reasons that made me want to start the process of making my own reviews and types of discussions, so stay tuned for more.
The first couple of hours, I was baffled by the game's overall visual aesthetic. A lot of environments look very thrown together. In the starting area, ADOS 7, you can identify traces of Art Deco in the tallness of the architecture, a bit of Soviet-era brutalism. There's even some Victorian iconography with Roman, Greek, and classical Christian statues just littered everywhere. There's Russian and English text on signs, and just none of it coalesces. It makes for a quite messy looking game world, and I'm not saying that the devs did this specifically, but it almost feels like something you'd see in a store-bought Unreal Marketplace asset game or something. I'm sure the team actually made these places by hand because they're a AAA Sony studio, but there's barely any consistency to it. The words that come to mind are visual vomit.
And another clip talking about character design.
You also meet all of the side quest characters, and it's also here where I started to question my sanity. I would not be surprised if each of these dudes was randomized in some character creation tool. They're also incomprehensible in their design. First off, none of these men have faces, and it's really off-putting. Like, I get that you want us to look at the girls, they're beautiful, but like, I don't know, give us some attractive men too? I don't know. They don't even have to be attractive, just give us some faces. Second, this is the town hairstylist. This mishmash of cobbled together metal and fake skin. I'm convinced this guy was randomly placed here at the last minute.
So, she brings up a good point of everyone's design within the game, mainly the design for men within stellarblade. All of these cybernetic looks to them and the town hairstylist, for example. A character that she brings up right after this clip have a half-assed design or quickly put into the game at the last minute just to make a character. That's her opinion. Truly, I never came to this conclusion because the game explains why men and women have such drastic cybernetic enhancements. In fact, throughout the game, I never had any true gripes with overall character design or enemy design, etc. If anything, the voice acting was far more disabling than seeing wannabe Maelstrom character number 5. I bring this point up to possibly explore why this conclusion came to be. Maybe she did know the lore entries describing that humanity went through dramatic integrations of cyber augmentations to excel humanity. That and humans on Earth and in space have different ways to have said improvements, hence why they all look like they fell out of a cyberpunk game. For an explanation as to why there's certain things for this, there are 2 text files that would help explain as to why certain story beats or why Eve in particular is so bland. Here it goes.
I must say, the angel's memory was conveniently lacking a few important details. She didn't know a thing about the history before the final war, and about the old humankind. Is it because she's a weapon, who doesn't need to know more than what it is required for her mission? Well, they're not exactly great weapons if they keep failing their mission. All those meaningless deaths and failures. At this point, I really wanted to ask Mother Sphere herself what in the hell she's been doing for the past few decades or so to perfect her magnum opus, the Eve Protocol. May your memories live on forever. May we find salvation. You don't think that's just Mother Sphere's bullcrap? I had an epiphany. Come to think of it, Mother Sphere doesn't make mistakes. Maybe this is how the Eve Protocol is meant to be. Killing the Elder and taking back Earth might be a pretext for some ulterior motive of hers. She intentionally made these angels to be complete morons. She isn't dropping another colony because those who are left on the surface still have roles to play in her plan. Mother Sphere is flawless. Everything designed on purpose. We just don't know what that purpose is. My guess is that Mother Sphere is performing a sort of experiment. She wants to see how these incomplete angels will evolve here on Earth. Maybe she's trying to create a truly new humankind, for the sake of our species.
Going off of these 2, we can easily see why it is possibly intentional, why even her comrades of the airborne squad can be so ignorant and stupid. There is another character that actually goes to show why these characters are more stupid, but that's a further spoiler that I won't dive into. Eve does develop throughout the game. She may be bland at first, but we could easily say that 2B is as well. Both have a specific reason, others even know that both of them are very, very different. 2B is cold because she wants to protect her emotions, whereas Eve is actually just stupid at first. Of course, most people would probably just collect this file and be like, this is way too big. I'm not going to read that, and then they move on with their lives. I've done that for other things that pertain not to things I'm really interested in, although they help build the world and other cultures a part of the game. So you can't really blame people for not being too engaged into certain things when all it is a wall of text. And like I said before, this is comparing Stellarblade to other FromSoft games because typically that is where the story is most hand-fed to you, although very, very cryptically. At least for Stellarblade, it may be hand-fed to you in text, but it is a lot more direct, and you don't have to think too hard about it. This is really focused a lot on Stellarblade, mainly because it's the medium that made me think as to why some reviews/reviewers come to conclusions as they do. Usually reviewers or people that have their opinion know what they're talking about. We'll say YouTube or independent reviewers, actually, to be safe. There's a lot out there that are actually very ignorant. Deductions like mine may be hard to come by because people that play these games with text boxes upon text boxes may not look at said text to understand the world or why things are the way they are. Elden Ring, for example. Many items that might not seem important give valuable insight into how the world, people, and culture of everything works, especially when most people read item descriptions for valuable information on the item itself. The Flame Drake Talisman, for example, is an item you get at the start of the game that delves into the idea of ancient dragons' culture, while the Dragon Communion Seal item offers insight into the fascination and sacrifices people have in order to obtain or begin their evolution to dragonhood. What does this have to do with what I'm saying? I don't blame reviewers missing information that would help immerse in the world or explain certain reasons and segments. Hell, in Armored Core 6, there's many small ways they suggest that V4 Rusty isn't exactly who he says he is, up into the grand reveal. Speaking of Armored Core, let's look into that game and why people seem to have struggled with one of From Software's most digestible stories. The Armored Core launch suffered from reviews being disappointed in how its story is delivered. The backstory of the institution, the comings of Balaam, Arquebus, and even knowing the intricacies of Walter, Ire, and even our own character are mostly left unanswered in the game while just playing casually. Think about this and put yourself into perspective here. You're a reviewer that needs to gloss over a topic usually glossed over in other games, and it happens to be a FromSoft game. Games that need their community to explain it to impatient people. Now, are you going to be that one reviewer out of many to beat the competition, get your talking points alright, and simultaneously get it out before the wave settles? All of that makes it sound more difficult than just saying that the story's presentation and development style are boring and uneventful to leave anything particularly special. After all, to some people, when they read files obtained, in very few missions mind you, they often just are hidden in some corner or way out the way to reveal some secret that most people don't even care for or won't understand because the game's story doesn't digest itself in a way that you understand it on a fundamental level. For example, this is spoilers for a New Game Plus Plus run, so bear with me. Although you can see this secret in most other playthroughs, in one mission when you're back to where you originally started the game, you can go back to the very, very beginning to where you crash landed, where you see a strange looking mech scanning your crash zone. Killing it, and you can tell that it has a weird scrambled comms device going off. Later on, when you investigate the Baus Arsenal facility, you see these very same things. In your New Game Plus run, or I think it's the New Game Plus Plus run, you run into Kate over here. If you play the game normally, this very same event, mind you, just in a different perspective, these very same bots are there. All of this with deduction, even though that for the most part, most people have the exact same intelligence as 61 and just want to shoot things, it's easy to come to the conclusion that there's something off with these machines, and they are also related to our neighborhood-friendly mercenary AI, Allmind. That, and throughout all of the different bios that you read of the different arena combatants, you see that there's a lot of information about them, and then in a spare area, you see that each of them are used to develop the quote-unquote perfect AC. For who? Well, what do you think? Anyway, spoiler time's over. Because of this, just like Stellarblade, they both suffer from the same problem. At surface level, it is lackluster. But the people that are the main people who consume and enjoy the game will have all explained in time. These kinds of games will always have this kind of stigma, unfortunately. Rightly so. It's a part of the style, I guess. So, Vidya's 5-hour-long video on the story, world, lore, and everything else in Armored Core 6 has come out recently, and it all the more cements my statement. These answers that would give a game a bad time to be judged to some is praised by others. Profited and showcased in a digestible manner. A 5-hour-long video details intricacies on the institution, designations on augmented pilots, Rubicon, Air, Allmind, Overseer, Arquebus, Balaam, the Rubicon Liberation Front, Branch, so many other different things have all been explained just in this one video alone. All of that able to be explored and then enjoyed by people that love the game so much that they go to find answers as to why things work. To some people, they might not like the game that much, or they might be busy, they might have a schedule, but at the end of the day, it has a reason to exist, this art form, because the way this storytelling is told is very interesting, engaging, and it makes you feel like you're a part of that world. You're learning these details. You learn about Rusty, you learn about the Rubicon Liberation Front, you learn how Coral works. Even though that it's just a MacGuffin, it can do fucking anything. You learn all of this stuff. You learn who Baus is. You learn all of this stuff is readily available to be learned about. But then most people are either too lazy or, fortunately for Vidya, he has such a community that they don't bother learning. They just wait for him to put it out and then he makes money off of it. If not for loreheads, most of this would be undiscovered and unappreciated. FromSoft's style would be criticized all the time, if not for people that figure it out. That's why communities are so potent. Most of this stuff would be unappreciated and then, shortly following, criticized in the storytelling or story that it is itself. Armored Core, Elden Ring, Stellarblade. Definitely one is not like the other in terms of community appreciation or taken seriously. But all three have a weird story, weird world, weird explanations, and ways you digest that very story. Does Stellarblade have issues? Of course it does. Presenting answers to know who's who, why certain things are? Yes. But there's some things that are already explained, and then there's the other issues of character depth and all that other stuff. It is not a perfect game by any means. This is not what this video is for. This video is still critiquing all these other games, but also critiques itself. The criticisms that this game undergoes is what I can think to be harsh in certain ways and only magnified simply because of the controversy on Eve's body. People dance around this thing and then they're overly critical because of it. If it can be this harsh, then it spreads to other titles, or to follow up on that logic, it should follow up to those titles, whether or not if it's okay or not. I don't think so. Armored Core and other titles suffer from the fate of hiding their answers. Whether that's acceptable, that's up to you, whether or not you like that storytelling. Anyway, that's kind of for everything. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow this channel for more discussion. My next project will tackle the Titan of Praise, Cyberpunk 2077, and its affiliated anime. Alright, see you around.